Hi guys, my name is Gareth. Some of you I had a pleasure to meet in person along my journey. Many of you know me as an admin of Cargo Van and Box Truck Expediting professional Facebook group, which is dedicated to light trucking. Also, Sprinter Zone, lifestyle Facebook community dedicated to sprinter ownership, marketplace, and mechanical knowledge. If you haven't already, go ahead and join our discussions there now. This topic of my channel was created mainly for people interested to join or already a part of expediting operations with gross vehicle weight rating under 10,000 pounds, which applies to most of the cargo vans on the road, as well as van-based trucks. Here's a bit of my background. I've been in the transportation industry for the past 14 years, 4 of which in expediting. Initially, I started by renting a low-roof Ram ProMaster van from a private fleet owner out of Chicago. Within a few weeks, I realized the importance of a larger space. I actually missed out on a couple of loads that were just a few inches longer or higher. As soon as I switched to a high-roof extended van, more loads became available. So my second year started with the purchase of a high-roof extended Ram ProMaster van, which was used, and that ownership was a roller coaster. But I'd like to leave that story for another video. First van ownership, private loan, and a bit of luck helped me to purchase a brand new Sprinter van. Many expeditors that don't own their operational vehicle start by signing up exclusively with owners/carriers/dispatchers and run on per mile terms. These drivers' net earnings range between 30 and 40 cents per loaded mile. In this scenario, they don't have to worry about vehicle ownership, maintenance, invoicing, and operational costs. But there is a negative side of this arrangement. You don't learn the rate structure of this business. Looking back, I realize how lucky I've been running independently from the start. My fleet owner signed me up with 5 force dispatch carriers that called all at once when loads became available in my area. Working under this pressure resulted in my bids being too low or too high. On the positive side, I learned something new and valuable every day. It helped me to establish my worth. To truly understand how expediting rates are structured, it's important to know the circumstances these loads become available to carriers. The first one is exclusive time critical loads. Second, recovery loads. And third, dedicated lanes. This is the most popular scenario when a load has to make it to the destination within a short period of time. Apart from our lower rates compared to straight trucks and semis, brokers utilize our services because we're exempt from stopping at weigh stations and maintaining a logbook. We're just simply faster. These loads are up for grabs due to warehouse discrepancies, carrier no-shows, last-minute customer purchases, emergencies, and so on. This cannot be combined with other loads. Brokers will most likely mention that before accepting your bid or state that on the rate confirmation. Occasionally, you'll come across with a load that needs to be transferred from another vehicle or cross-dock due to truck breakdown. Some carriers see this as an opportunity to bid high, but don't forget that one day it could be you sitting on the side of the road. Keep in mind that funds generated from the load will be subtracted from the broke down driver's payout. There is only one pie to share. Assuming your vehicle's cargo area dimensions and payload is suitable, this is where you compete with all the vehicle types across the board. Other cargo and sprinter vans, box trucks, straight trucks, and semis. To save on cost, it's obvious for shippers to hire a smaller qualifying vehicle. Brokers will look for the lowest bid since they have time to pick and choose. There are a few ways people earn in this business. The first one, local runs. Second, regional operations. And third, long haul. It's safe to say that local loads in expediting industry are any cargo that keeps you within your home-based state and does not require you to maintain interstate authority. From my personal experience,
Building your business based solely on local loads isn't sustainable, since there aren't many loads like that out there while insurance cost is very high. If you have to stay local, consider diversifying your operations with last mile parcel, mail, food deliveries, or even moving gigs. This way, you can make it work. This includes everything mentioned in local runs, but with wider radius. Some carriers manage to stay busy while navigating between neighboring states. However, your insurance premium will increase since it will require upgrade to intermediate radius and interstate authority. It usually implies over-the-road operations. This route I'd recommend to most operators. There are carriers that establish dedicated lanes and can plan their routes accordingly, but vast majority in this niche run one load at a time. Drivers normally stay over the road for weeks, sometimes months. Combined with local and regional runs makes this worth hassling.
This brings us to markets, some of which are really profitable, some dead. On the following map, I marked US markets based on routine cargo availability and rates.
Green areas represent great markets. It means there is a healthy flow of higher paying loads there. This is where you can maximize your earnings potential. A few examples are Mecca of loads, Chicago, Center of Manufacturing, Detroit, or JFK Airport in New York City. Yellow areas stand for good markets. In these areas, you'll find a somewhat sustainable flow of average paying loads. Here are a few examples: Atlanta, Georgia, Birmingham, Alabama, or El Paso, Texas, with its flow of border crossing freight. Red areas cover weak markets. I wouldn't recommend fishing there for too long, but worth sticking around for a day or two. A few examples are Miami, Florida, Phoenix, Arizona, or Seattle, Washington.
It's also important to build your bidding strategy based on markets upgrade and downgrade.
If you're bidding on a load coming from green to yellow market, for instance, Chicago to Atlanta, or yellow to red, for instance, Atlanta to Seattle, add 10% to your operation rate, 20% if you're downgrading from green to red, for instance, Chicago to Seattle. If you're bidding on a load coming from red to yellow market, for instance, Seattle to Atlanta, or yellow to green, Atlanta to Chicago, deduct 10% from your operation rate, 20% if you are upgrading from red to green, for instance, Seattle to Chicago. For loads transported within similar markets, go with your operation rate. For instance, loads between Chicago and JFK, New York City, or loads between Houston and Atlanta, Georgia, or Sacramento, California, and Seattle, Washington.
You've probably heard about dollar per mile standard operation rate for cargo vans in expediting. While it's somewhat accurate, lately I've been noticing drivers and carriers massively misunderstanding this. Why don't we dive into this together?
There are a few components to this rate. Number 1, vehicle expenses. This component includes fuel, vehicle repairs and maintenance, and so on. IRS standard mileage deduction rate is 56 cents per mile for 2021, which changes to 58.5 cents per mile for 2022, and based on under $3 per gallon of gas or $3.50 for a gallon of diesel. Considering the rise of fuel prices, this rate will most likely increase for 2023. But I'd like to avoid any assumptions when forming this figure, so let's stick to 58.5 cents per mile. Number 2, payroll. Regardless whether you're an owner-operator or hired someone to drive for you, this component there to compensate the worker for driving labor. 45 miles per hour is the average transit speed and includes bathroom and fuel stops, traffic conditions, and other routine delays. All reputable load boards estimate the transit based on that speed. At 45 miles per hour, driver's compensation is between 30 cents per loaded mile, which is equal to $13.50 per hour, or 40 cents per loaded mile, which is equal to $18 per hour. I suggest we use the lowest point at 30 cents per loaded mile, since we're trying to establish the lowest conditions to make this model work. Number 3, fleet management. This component attracts parties named as fleet owners to dedicate their time, experience, and funds. It involves vehicle purchase, registration and insurance, maintenance delegation, also sale of the equipment at the end. At 10 cents per mile and 10,000 average driven monthly miles, owner's compensation comes up to $1,000 net, making it somewhat worthy to be involved in this gig. Now let's add these 3 components: 58.5 plus 30 plus 10 cents per loaded mile. Operation rate came up to 98.5 cents per mile. Rounded to $1 is a true bottom line. Some might say that their vehicle expenses don't reach 58.5 cents per loaded mile. It's important to consider your equipment's depreciation and lifespan. It might not require much of your attention when new. As the time passes, it'll cost significantly more to maintain. That vehicle will average 120,000 miles annually, so it's necessary to keep it absolutely safe and sound. With the rise of fuel cost, it's important to adjust your operation rate accordingly. As I mentioned earlier, vehicle expenses are based on $3 per gallon of gas and $3.50 per gallon of diesel. Here's a simple formula you can use to calculate the increase. You take difference of fuel price and divide by your vehicle's miles per gallon. For example, as of end of March 2022, US average of regular gasoline is $4.24, and my van's average economy is 16 miles per gallon. So I subtract $3 out of $4.24 and divide it by 16, rounded to 8 cents and added to dollar standard operation rate, brings up my current operation rate to $1.08 per loaded mile. You really don't have to make those precise calculations daily, but updating your rate weekly is a good practice. Another important thing to consider when placing your bid is your minimum load rate. Whether it's bringing a ladder across the street or moving 3 pallets for 250 miles, you should not bid lower than $250. Bidding higher is a good idea in certain cases, so use your best judgment. If a local run is taking you to the area requiring deadheading back, make sure to bid a round-trip rate. Shall we dive deeper? There are other factors it definitely helps to consider before shooting your bid and while attending a load. Number 1, does your load require you to bring paperwork to a pickup site? Most airports, for example, require you to bring printed paperwork. If you don't have a portable printer in your truck, you'll have to find some printing shop, library, truck stop, or a hotel with business center. There are times when locating a spot is a real pain. A little tip for you: keep a few blank BOLs with you if a shipper doesn't have it ready for you at a pickup site. Number 2, will you be crossing international border? This might imply delays at the borders, deadheading, user fee and toll, higher fuel prices, and you will need to print customs manifest sometime after you pick up. Number 3, will you be accessing military base or other secure federal premises? This also can cause delays, and only US citizens with clean background are granted access to those sites. This might give you an advantage if you qualify. Number 4. Is your load sensitive to temperatures? Your customer might request keeping your truck's AC or heat running throughout the trip. That means higher fuel consumption and wear to your equipment. Number 5. Are you bidding on hazmat? These hauls require hazmat, driver's license endorsement in most cases, additional authority, and insurance cost. Number 6. Did your customer mention team drivers? This means non-stop transit and normally involves 2 people to cover a load. Number 7. Shipper or receiver don't have means to load or unload you? Manual handling must be compensated. I found that anywhere between 5 cents and 10 cents per hand-loaded or unloaded pound is an honest rate. Twice as much if manual labor is needed on both ends. Number 8. Are you being held up at pickup, delivery, or both? How do you deal with cancellations? Detention past the first 2 hours should be compensated at around $25 per hour. Layovers are normally capped at $150 per night. Truck ordered not used cancellations must be compensated for time and fuel spent. Based on your operation rate, calculate the total miles driven to the pickup site, add detention or layover if applicable. Number 9. Does your load require you to deadhead to a pickup site or from your delivery site to the closest market? Make it count. It's a common practice to add empty miles to your loaded miles, or at least being partially compensated for fuel.
This industry for patient, efficient, and confident individuals that stay on top of their operations and don't hesitate to knock on doors. Remember, communication is key. If you enjoyed this video, please hit like and subscribe. If you have any questions or recommendations, comment below. Stay tuned for more topics to come soon. Cheers!